Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining. If you're listening to this now, that means you're watching it on YouTube later. So just skip 3 or 4 minutes ahead, and we will get started. So give folks a few moments to roll in. I see we have some people kind of joining right now. Thank you guys. So yeah, like I said, we'll get started here somewhat shortly. So if you have questions, feel free to put a chat. I think it's QA these days. But if you have questions, we got potentially have answers. So like I said, we'll get started with questions in probably about 3 minutes here. But if you have them, you can go ahead and start putting them in order. We will kind of talk about things in the order in which we receive the questions. So, um, yeah, just let me know if and how I can be helpful. Or if you just have a conversational topic point you kind of want to bounce around, I'll gladly just kind of start there. If your business is using a certain use case or you want to know more about certain features, we're here. We got plenty of people on our side of the line and plenty of people on your side of the line. So let me know if and how I can be helpful. All right. While I'm kind of just killing a little bit of time, like I said, feel free to just kind of populate the chat or the QA if you've got stuff you would like us to talk about, because as of right now, I am unguided. But something that is new that you may not have seen us talking about in the Lunch and Learn webinars is on February 27th. So this week, I believe that is Thursday. If my math is right. We do have a webinar on agentic AI. And you might think, oh, well, hey, that sounds interesting. How can I find that? The easiest way to find it is to go to our website. So you can go just from our website, decisions.com, and under resources, we have events. And there it is right there. So we are partnering with the Everest Group. We have some folks that are talking about maybe how it's actually been deployed with them. And we've got some folks on our team to kind of fill in the gaps there. And you can kind of see what we're talking about here uh, on this one. All of these webinars also do end up on YouTube. So if you think, oh, well, this one doesn't necessarily apply to me, but it's cool that they have webinars, feel free to go back and take a look at, see if I can get here. Sorry. If you just type in, I think the fastest way to do it is if you just type in decisions, like decisions automation, decisions low code, our marketing page, our decisions marketing page. Nope, decisions plural, automation. We have all of our webinars posted here. It's just at decisions. Wow, coulda, shoulda, woulda remembered that. But here's all of our past webinars. So 2 weeks ago, we had one, a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and you might be able to find a full-length webinar. Yeah, that might apply to you. So webinars is another great option for you. Um, another great option for you. So looking for, what's the best practice to deploy an on login flow for OpenID? That's a good question, Vitali. That is a very good question. That might be something I'll have to just do a little bit of research and talk with some of the folks. I hesitate to give a best practice when it comes to security if I'm not fully informed, and I just wouldn't rather be super informed. But let me just go ahead and copy that and see if I can just forward that to someone that might have. I don't want to do any speculation when it comes to security. No speculation on my side. Um, but let me see if I can find some stuff for you while we're kind of waiting here in the mediary. And if anyone has any questions, like I said, we have 4 lovely decisions employees on my side of the line. We've got a handful on your side of the line. So let me know if and how I can be helpful. Can I be added to the project, right? Yeah, let me look here. So the initial advice I'm getting back, I'm still kind of like doing a little bit of research, is um, perform testing on incognito window, keeping admin session open in normal window. It's going to ensure that the system setup is completed and the portal function is confirmed stable. You'll use a login flow to make a call to an external example AD server to get users roles, update the accounts during login, save the changes. The login user flow behavior allows you to trigger processes based on user event login. Note that user login flows do not support UI elements or navigation actions, so they cannot display anything to the user or redirect within the portal. And then you can ensure you have pre-existing OpenID account, access to OpenID API, and the module installed, so it's part of a module. Yeah, Ty, I'm gonna do some research and get back to you on that. Just because I really hesitate to give any type of um, advice on stuff like that where I'm not informed. But I forwarded it over to the support. We'll see if they can give us some answers. But while we're kind of waiting on that, we did get a question from Justin. I will unmute you, Justin, if you have any context. I think I got a pretty good idea about what you're talking about. And yeah, there's options, certainly. So I've unmuted you, and I can maybe show you some that are kind of built in. But what do you have anything to add to that? I mean, that seems kind of straightforward to me. Um,
It's pretty straightforward.
cool.
Currently I have like a run assignment that kind of does a little bit, but I'm looking for something kind of between what the run assignment does and like just a report page that shows all of them. Something kind of in between.
Yeah. Yeah. So you'll have a handful of options. And feel free, anybody on my team, kind of redirect me if I'm walking in a weird direction. Um, an initial, an initial, well, actually, I don't know. My initial thought was to walk towards something with a configuration folder and a user action to complete an assignment. And then once you have that, it'll apply to all the reports and pages and dashboards that are referencing that structure. So as a illustrated example here, um, in your configuration folder. So let's say, let me find one that's probably easy, or at least easy to wrap your head around. Let's say in my configuration folder, I might have something assigned to someone so that they can sign a document, right? Like it might show up as an assignment in their inbox to sign the document. You can create a user action that would perform a similar action to complete that assignment, or you can make the assignment kind of the creation of the assignment kind of happen here. If it's something that you want more ambiguity about who completes the assignment, kind of an open, an open area where people complete the assignment. And once you have that, you should be able to right click on records and get those actions to complete the assignment as long as they're a part of that configuration folder. You can set up visibility rules as part of this as well, saying like, oh, only, as an example, like we have it set up so that the only person who can view the signed document um, is if their name is in the extension data of that record. So when I right clicked on one of those records on my dashboard, as long as the extension data had the matching email as the person who was right clicking, it'll give them the action to sign document, and that could help you um, complete actions in that capacity. Um, what yeah, anybody else on my side of the line, Greg or Jeremy, do you guys have any other insights on an easy way to kind of, I'm sure you can populate assignments on a report by just using the assignment structure. It's a framework. Um, again, I don't know how helpful that would be for you, but you could put a current user filter on there. Um, so let's create an assignment filter. Like I said, well, I'll stop talking so somebody can fill in if they have an idea.
Oh no, I was just gonna say the exact same thing you're doing now.
Yeah, so you can add an assignment data source, which is going to show all assignments for, and this is just a lot of them. Um, but then you could say, where is, looking for like assigned to kind of assigned
It
to
might be
type
under all assignment or something like that.
different
All
source, you mean?
assignments right there. click on the all assignments. I think that specifies the user.
Ah, perfect. Yep. So then, thank you, Greg. So I can add a filter like all assignments, and then if I add a current user filter, and this will show up for every person when they look at this dashboard, you could say the field to evaluate. Pull this a little sideways here. Entity, any assignment, all assignments. I believe it'll only show you those ones because I'm logged in as admindecisions.com. That'll give them at least a list of the assignments that are assigned to them. Once you do that, you may be able to provide some actions or you know a run flow button to complete the action on the right side. So something in this world.
They might already show the actions if you put it on a page. It might be tied to the entity.
Let's try it, man. Thank you, Greg. Let's try it. I love that. So pages, let's create, I love my whatever tile. Probably need a little bit of organization here. Assignment actions on report. Let's add that report. Pick existing. I did the assignment filter. Make this bigger. Let's make a page here. Nothing there. Nice. Go ahead and just add one. Add a page. The only page I got, I believe. Yeah, so it actually does. Greg is right. Yeah, so this was the name of that action, so I can confirm it and complete that assignment right there. This is a fake assignment. I could probably prove that in Global Debugger. So if I right click one of these actions, confirm, why are we not loading there? But this is that action. So would that be helpful, Justin, or is there something, another use case somewhere I can wiggle around there?
I think that's kind of what I was looking for.
Cool, cool. Yeah, and like I said, I'll kind of go back to it. Just you'd want to use a current user filter and then set that field to evaluate to all assignment. So again, I probably should be better organized here. Fortunately, I am not. I believe I called it filter, something account filter, assignment filter. Yeah. Yeah. So assignment data source, current user filter, and you'd want to set it up to evaluate that all assignments using the primary email address of the user. And then they'll have actions there where, again, when they right click them, that confirm. Like if I go to, I don't think it might not be in my inbox anymore. Here's lease, right? Here's that same confirm action as a right clickable action in here. So yeah, that is awesome. Thank you, Greg, and Jeremy for the alignment there. Yeah, I'll keep on moving. Feel free to, if you have any side questions on that, we have, like I said, we got plenty of people on this side line. We can do a little more deeper diving. What are the best practices for file retrieval? This is from Tommy, by the way. What are the best practices for file retrieval? And we're struggling to display an image saved to a case entity assignment when the assignment state is new. The second one seems a little, might be hard for me to reproduce. But the first one, I do believe, I could be wrong about this. We did, Tommy, I'll put this in the chat, just fresh off the press here. This might have some of the information, and I don't mind kind of covering this as well. But I'll put this in the chat for everybody. We did just come out with like file directory steps. And this is maybe not going to be a full encapsulation of everything that you might be asking, but it might be a decent starting point. And kind of walking through like where are your files stored and what are some pathways to kind of retrieve those based on different steps. What are best practices for file retrieval? I think that's going to depend on where those files are located. I'll unmute you as well in case you want to kind of give me a little bit of insight on either of those. But I think it depends on where the files are stored is going to be a best practice for how you're going to retrieve them. And I see it says you're unmuted, Tommy, but I'm not getting any audio on my end. So if might be a headset thing. I can screen share and demo the second issue. I cannot hear you. And we also
Yeah.
unfortunately can't have you screen share just because when we put these on YouTube, we just don't want to put ourselves or you into a position where you're accidentally exposing some type of data. We have to lock it to just us screen sharing or just us screen sharing. But yeah, go ahead. Fill me in on some of the gaps there, and we might be able to figure out what's going on.
Cool. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah,
I'm
sounds
sorry,
great.
Zoom had the wrong microphone selected.
Yeah, me too. It's all good.
So what we're trying to do is we have built kind of a starter app just to get our feet wet on really the system as a whole after kind of going through all the training. And we are trying to we have built a workflow, like approval, it's a maintenance form. So somebody like our maintenance team, or our resource admins put in a request for maintenance team gets the request, they get the assignment. It's using a case entity, and then we have a form, and then the form has a drop down where you choose the different states, whether it's like pending, new, it goes like new, pending, um, hold on, and then like two other states, whatever it is, like completed, review, whatever it is. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to allow uh, a maintenance person or a resource specialist to upload a photo as part of that. So, they have to go change a light bulb or whatever. They could take a picture of the light bulb, or if
Yeah,
it's broken, whatnot. And we're just having trouble kind of getting that the show either as like a downloadable file or as an embedded file. We got the embedded image to work, but that's the kind of the weird state part where, like,
yeah,
say you upload it on submission and then it automatically goes into a new assignment state. It won't show then, but then as soon as we change it to any other state after new, and new is the automatic state, it will show embedded. Um, so we're just kind of struggling on that, and it kind of made us question whether we were kind of doing best practices overall
yeah.
because of
How are
that.
you? No, that was very thorough. I appreciate all that. That was very thorough. How are you absorbing that file, the image? Is it as a part of your data structure as file data?
Do you mind unmuting Clarence Chang? He's on this call as well.
Yeah, of course. There you go. Got you
Because
both.
I am not remembering all of that. I'm looking through the forms really quickly right now. But
Yeah.
I believe we do have a part of our data structure.
Alright.
One sec to confirm that.
Am I on the wrong mic or can you guys hear me?
Oh, I can hear
I
you.
can hear you. Yeah. I can hear you.
Okay. I've been talking all day long. Hear me. Okay, so data structure, let me look at it real quick.
We do. We have a request file upload. I beat them to it. And we have that as a string. But it's a
So
stringified list.
it's a
I
string
guess,
of a list. It's a
yeah,
string
I guess like an
list.
array. Yeah.
Okay. And in your flow, after your initial form, how are you storing that? It's like
Let me look.
you have a form, I imagine, where they can attach a photo. After
Correct.
that, there's a create user defined type step, I'd imagine. What is the methodology you're using here?
Yeah, so there's
Uh,
a create case entity. I'm on the main flow, Tommy. So
okay, cool. Yeah, thank
so
you.
we're doing a create case entity and then from the case entity, we're going into the load from file data step.
Yep.
And then from that, you go into a add file reference to folder.
Oh, I love it. Okay. That
Yeah,
makes
because we
sense.
were trying to do the file reference because the other methods we were told not to do, which make
Yeah.
total sense because they're being stored somewhere and you just want to reference them.
Yeah.
We're just a little confused on how to do that correctly.
Yeah, the state thing, and I'm gonna draw on the screen here, so just correct me if I'm wrong here. We have some type of file upload, just to make sure we're all on the same page. We have some type of file upload on a form,
Mm-hmm.
all right? And then out of that form, we're going to a create step to store some type of data.
Mm-hmm.
This create step is giving us some type of entity ID for the folder. Let me change my color here that we're creating, because we're creating case entity. You're essentially creating a folder somewhere. So when we hit that create step, we're creating a folder. You then have load from file data so that you can convert that file data to file reference. So we're going, let's just say load here, or I'll try to spell it out. Load from file data. That converts file data to file reference. Am I still on
Correct.
with that?
Yep.
And then you are on the last step, you are using create entity from file reference.
We do, yeah, so we already, our
What's
first
the
step
name?
was, the order was the create maintenance request case entity. Then we did the load from file data.
Yep,
Then we did the add file reference.
add file reference. And that's a file
And
reference service. Are you on version 9 or version 8?
We are
we're
the
on
latest one.
9.7.5, I
Yeah,
think.
we're the
Okay.
latest one with the heart at the very top. That shows you the health.
Yeah, cool. That's what I want to. So then you're adding file reference, and part of that is you're getting the entity ID out of this entity ID, and then mapping this information to kind of put it into the folder, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. I'm feeling good about this.
I don't think we're actually saving it back. Like it's not saving it as an entity in the folder that we can go and click on though. Should it be doing that?
It is. I think it has to. It's
Oh, maybe
somewhere.
that's something we can't reach then or see.
Yeah, so it's let's just and what can you give me like maybe one more field on your structure and I'll just do a quick build out. I think we might be
Yeah.
able to.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I just
No, you're good.
so like our form basically has like request your name, request your summary, and then like data repair. Some good ones.
All right.
And the data repair is a date field. The other
Yeah.
ones are strings.
All right. So you said your first one's called new,
Yep.
and you have some other ones like in progress or
Like
something,
in
I'd imagine.
progress and yeah, in progress, pending
Yeah.
completed.
And then each of those basically calls the same subflow that we have that does the same thing as a trigger.
Yep.
So you have it set up to go here and then it goes back. You put a flow in here is what you're saying? Like you
Yeah.
added a user.
So we have a trigger. I'm clicking right.
And those trigger flows
then-
are unique to this state, right? They're not pointing back to the main flow.
Correct.
Okay.
So each has its own unique trigger flow, but then the trigger flow literally just points to a subflow and then ends.
Probably should name this something nicer.
We just wanted to make it as complicated as possible.
No, I don't think it's that popular. I don't think it's that good. I really don't. It just, there's so much nuance to it. I just wanted to make sure,
No, I
knew what
appreciate it.
and
I
I don't want
appreciate
to give you an answer of a different type here. Pick a create form. Let's just pick a create a form. All right. And then we said a create step. Let's just pick the create new form. Dang it. I always do that. Create new form. Let's call this file upload.
And that's the thing that's confusing us since we are pointing to the same subflow for every step. And that it works with some states, but not the very first state. I think that's
was just about to ask, does that first state have a trigger flow?
it does.
Yep.
It does. Okay.
Yeah.
I
That's
have a theory.
Yeah.
Ooh, please.
When you're creating the case entity, because it's starting out in that state, I'm wondering if it's kicking off that trigger flow before the rest of the main flow even processes.
Okay. Nothing errors though. Like everything else works fine. I mean, would you expect that to error if it was doing things out of order?
Well, it depends on what would be left. So let's say that the create step adds in all the data and then you're just trying to add file references, right? So that would still work, but the other steps would still be possibly activating before the file references have even been uploaded in the main flow. I'm not sure. This is just theory crafting. I can't see your process right now, but that's why I'm wondering why that first one might be giving you a problem.
Gotcha.
Would that still, oh, I'm listening in, so would that still be possible even if we did the set entity state after all the file upload, file reference steps?
I'm wondering if it's a create that's kicking it off, and we're about to learn that right now with this
Yeah.
Okay.
test.
Okay,
I
cool.
do know that hypothetically, and I might not word this correctly, so apologies. But your main when you're creating a case entity and you have a create step, dang it. Right there. When you have a create step, it'll hypothetically automatically live in here. So like with your new,
Oh.
like if you have a main flow and you put a create step, like it lives here when you first create it. So if you create it here and then you set entity state to new, it's going to rerun that flow again. You're going to have duplicate entries. So you'd want to like pretend your main flow lives here and then set entity state to in progress, or add a state and pivot all of your stuff to the left. So let's say you already had stuff in here, add one and kind of pivot over. So you could add one and go, okay, and then, you know, um, uninitiated or something, you know. And then I believe you can reorder these with
I think the first, because I'm looking at a stub flow that those triggers trigger. I think it's rightly saying that. The first thing it does is it refreshes the case entity so that we get like refresh data, and then it goes through a check to see if the ticket is in a new state or not. And if it is in a new, then it branches off and it goes through a new path that basically is exactly the same, except for I think we have some like verbiage that gets set to or sent to the user. Can't remember exactly, but there's like some minor differences. But essentially, what both branches do, whether it's new or not new, is that it gets the file references and then it puts them into an assignment form, and then
Is
it
it,
saves those forms, like the review. It
is it,
puts them into a review form, and then it saves the review selections back to the case entity.
is there a way that we can send snapshots or no?
say that one more time. Is there a way you can do snapshots?
Yeah, so if I know I can't screen share, but if I wanted to do like a screenshot, just so like you guys could like have a better idea.
If you just can you email training@decisions.com
That would be
and
good for
I
now.
can maybe look at it offline here.
All right.
But I do want to talk about like at least storage of
Yeah.
cases. Part of creating a case entity is
Mm,
you need a place like you need a place to store those things. So like when you look at your create step, like there's going to be a parent folder ID where you're going to have to store those cases, because when you create a case, you are essentially creating um, a folder. And like you need, like it's like, you know, creating a folder on Windows. It's just, okay, well,
Right,
where do you want
right,
to create this folder? Do you want it on documents, desktop, something like that?
right.
You might have it somewhere where you can't see it, but it has to exist. There's no other way to.
No, we do have a folder for maintenance
Okay,
requests.
cool,
We can see all our submissions, but
cool.
we can't like I can't see like say I upload like a JPEG, I can't see that JPEG in that folder, but I can see it as like a part of
If
the
you
entity, if that makes sense.
if you go to the right side for folder view, do you see anything in it? I'll
We
show
don't.
you here in a moment once I get this built out.
Yeah,
But
yeah. And
um,
also, we don't want to take all your time, but if we could have like, you know, if this becomes a little bit more complicated, if we could, is there any way we could schedule like one-on-one time with y'all?
that would be through support.
Okay.
Yeah, like training, we would like to, but we kind of are allocated for just like helping people get through the training, some stuff y'all went through. But our support is a similar service, and there's actually a lot more team. Like we have 4 people on the U.S. side, on training, and if I look over to my left in the office with me, we have like 50 people in support. And
Wow.
with
Okay.
them you can actually share your screen and do it in a private, you know, secured session,
Okay.
and they can give you a little more insight, especially with some of those like more niche, like unexpected behavior type stuff. Like that's really what their whole pipeline is for.
Sure.
I'll just call it created case folder name. I'm just gonna merge text. I'm just gonna do this kind of ugly here. Request your email. Will that work? We're gonna leave this file upload list of string. We'll ignore that for now. Okay. And then you guys were loading from file data so that you can convert file reference, or sorry, file data to file reference, because file data is going to expire when flow ends. So from here, I can select from flow. You're doing something along this line. Oh, how's is your initial form taking it? I guess for your methodology, it would have to be taking in file reference or file data, right? Do you know if you're,
let me check, Tommy.
yeah.
Unless you're already on there.
I got
Yeah,
it.
so
I got it.
you'll click your upload area and see what the
Yeah.
output type is.
Output type right now is file data.
Yep, cool.
Should it be file reference though?
It can be. I mean, I think it really just depends on what your use case is. I do believe
Okay.
that your file data is going to be more performant.
Okay.
Um, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, Gregory, because you're not having to load up every piece of the file. You're kind of just like loading it up in some temporary capacity. And this will save it because I'm trying to think here. Load from file data. And then you guys were using, it was a probably user defined type step. What was it called again? Add file reference to folder.
That's correct.
I believe it's a user add file reference.
I think you'll need to do the call internal service thing.
Yeah, so I was. There is. So Jeremy's telling me there's a step that does it without the internal service, but does yours look like this API
We have the paperclip.
paperclip?
Yeah. But I mean, if it does the same thing, right? So
It might be that might be the missing link though, if that's what we need.
yeah.
Yeah, right
Uh,
there is what we have, that one.
Yeah, Jeremy's filling me in on the side here that does the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so file
it's the
reference.
same thing as the internal services, so there should be no problem with it.
Flow data. Where are we at? Up right there. So we're loading that file reference, the folder ID. We're getting the entity ID right there. What do we call it? I believe it's just called entity ID. It's called folder ID. Yeah, folder ID.
Yeah, that confused us too. We're like, why isn't it entity ID?
Because it's yeah, it is a lot of those words can be synonymous, like because anytime you create anything in decisions, you're creating an entity. Like the term entity,
Yeah.
it can mean anything, and
Right.
every entity has an identifier. But the problem is that they are when you create a folder, the folder ID is the entity ID because the entity is the folder. You know what I mean? It's almost like a mouth riddle or something. Okay, so we're almost here, I think. Let me see if I can just get something to populate. We'll put this image because it's smaller in there. And then we'll just call this Rob. I don't think I even used these fields. Robert Brower. All right, so allegedly we went through it. So there's that thing. All right, and then if I click up here on folder view, there's the PNG. Are you getting that? If you click folder view, are you getting
You're going
anything
to
up
the
here?
actual case entity. So, and that's another question probably for another time is like, we were wondering, I guess, if we were even doing the case entity stuff best practice wise, because we were trying to steer away from the case entity page, and we were trying to create a form that kind of displayed this back to the user.
Yeah.
And that may be biting us in the butt a little bit.
No, I'm an advocate of the case entity. You just got to realize it's because of the complexity with the configuration folder and the additional options.
Yeah.
You're sacrificing some performance for some scalability. Like,
yeah,
the other option on the other side. So you're on one side of the spectrum. You're on this side of the spectrum over here, case entity.
Yeah.
Let's say you go this side and you want to be slightly more performant. The problem is what if then you decide, hey, we'd like additional functions and features where only certain people, you got to be a manager to get approved, whatever it might be. You might, if you don't have this configuration folder, which not all of them have, you're going to get less options in terms of configuring how your end users can interact with case entities. We have projects that are similar to this through training. I guess I've done some of them like I9 where we create case entities and store stuff in them where certain users can and can't perform actions. I would probably recommend staying and here it is right now. What I was talking about a few moments ago. But if you click on folder view, are you getting anything at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now that I know that button's there, I see it. So
yeah, these are just different ways of looking at the case. So you like, it's currently in the uninitiated phase right here. So.
And we can edit this. Like, I know in your documentation, you can clone that page and then kind of add or remove like UI elements from it, correct?
Yes.
So that honestly might just be what we need to do because it looks like you guys have a lot of stuff baked in already.
Yeah. So, but you're saying you have your main flow in here as your trigger flow?
Yeah. Well, we have so when you do a trigger flow, there's a flow and it literally just connects to a subflow and then it connects to an output. and then we replicate that. Like every trigger for every state looks the same. And then that subflow is where we have, it's our more detailed flow.
But in here you have this essentially, like your main
Yes,
flow.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
And
I
that
think you're
has like
creating.
two outcomes coming out of the subflow.
Yeah, I think you're creating kind of an infinite loop. Let's try it one more time and see what this new one looks like, and if any data kind of goes in there.
Yeah, it's just weird because it works. It just doesn't work for that one initial state.
So, can you fill me on what part of it is not working in the initial state? You can't refetch that document, like the document no longer exists.
So
Correct.
on
Well,
the
it's
on
yeah.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead, go
Tyler.
ahead. No, no, go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah, so on the form we have this drop down that shows you the status, right? Is it a new form? Like
Okay.
what
Yeah.
status? Is it new? Is it pending? And it's so the maintenance person say, hey, it's new, it's impending. When the maintenance person they see it for the first time, right? And it doesn't see anything. So let's say someone submitted the form, they uploaded the file, they submit the form. It goes into the new bucket, right? And if I was a maintenance person, right, I see the information, but I don't see the image. If I was to select, hey, this form is now in progress, updates, same information, just that has changed. But because of that update, now you can see the image. Now you can download the image. Now it's actually retrievable. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. Do you guys have a
Okay.
set entity state in your main flow?
Yes, I believe so.
In
Oh,
our trigger flows, yeah,
so in your trigger flow you have a
Yeah,
set entity state for the next
yes,
state.
exactly. Basically.
and that once we like it made sense while we were building it. And then after we started running these issues, we are like, did we build this like best practices? So because it almost started to feel like we were kind of reinventing a wheel that we didn't know about, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, like the wheel roll. You're pushing a wheel that rolls by itself.
Up a hill and
Yeah.
sideways sometimes.
Um, yeah, it's a fine practice to include in your. I mean, it's probably a best practice if we're going to be honest to include a entity state to get to your next trigger flow in the configuration folder. So as a practical example, like here's one that's more built out. Again, our started is kind of blank. In our main flow, we set the entity state to credit score calculation in the main flow. And then in scoring and evaluation in this trigger flow, a bunch of stuff is done, but eventually we set the state to the next one called loan officer review, and it will
Mm-hmm.
run this flow. And then once these actions are done, once this form is filled out that lives in here, it'll then say, okay, well, are we rejecting it or are we not? And if we're rejecting it, we set state to rejected or set state to new applicant document upload. So that is a best practice. That is kind of a way you're going to kind of get data to go through these things.
Cool.
My first troubleshooting recommendation. Well, let's go with my second. My first troubleshooting recommendation it would be to get on with support. If you just email support@decisions.com, they'll schedule
Mhm.
something with you in the same way we would.
Okay.
It's just support@decisions.com. That's number one. It's just
Okay.
have someone that can look at it and talk you through and walk you through it with you. My number two recommendation would be to see if that folder, so like, okay, if everything is having problems in a certain state, right? And you go, okay, find a way to jam it into the next state and see if that issue is still persisting. So as an example of that, I can right click on one of these records like Robert Grauer at decisions.com.
Yeah.
That's in this older state. And again, this is in,
Yep,
I
yep, yep.
believe uninitiated.
We can do
Oh,
that. So we can right click on that. We can manually change the state and it works fine. It's just that one stinking first state that's not working.
okay. And then how are you guys fetching? And this is all about fetching an image, right? How are you fetching the image?
Clarence, do you have that thing open
Yeah,
still?
let me, so we've got our fetch maintenance request and entity ID equals, so we fetch the most recent one, and then
First.
yeah, the first entity, sorted by ascending, and then we do a conditional. If the ticket status is new, go one way. If the ticket status is not new, go the other way. And the new branch does not pull the data. I mean, it pulls all the information for the form, the file data, and then if the ticket is not new, so again, if it's like progress pending, it pulls the data. So either way, we have a fetch entity and then hit the conditional new or not new, and then it's
So
supposed
you're
to
fetching
that.
the entity. You're fetching entities.
We are, yes. Case
I,
entity.
I might try this one.
All right.
And so just to add to that then, so that fetch is going on inside of that subflow inside of the new folder, right? Like the new trigger flow, that
Yeah.
fetch is happening.
Yep, yep.
Okay, I'm almost certain that's what it is then, is that that fetch is returning nothing because the files haven't been added in the main flow before that trigger flow kicks off.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
No worries. So as soon as your case entity is getting created, it's
Uh-huh.
living inside of that trigger flow and executes it. Okay. So
Mm.
that trigger flow runs before your main flow even finishes to add the file in the first place. I
Right.
think that's
We're
what's
skipping
going on.
we're jumping the
Yeah.
gun on that. Okay.
So like if I like I'll put a show pop-up step here, and I think to prove a point, I'll go and hit the create step, and you'll see the pop-up step show up as soon as it hits the create step. Is that what you're talking about, right, Gregory?
Yeah, I think that's what's
Yeah,
going
I'm
on.
with
And
you.
that could be fixed very easily by just creating another state and moving it in front of the new state because
Right.
the case entity is set to default to be created in the first listed state.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I'll show. I think I can show it to you in a way that makes some kind of sense. That does make sense to me too, Greg. I don't mean it that way. You know what I mean? Look here. Look here. And we'll do it at the center. Look here. All right. And then when I go back to your initial flow and I put something between these to slow us down a little bit. And I'll pick that exact same form again. Right. So just so we can stall, I'm basically putting like a stall step in there. See, that pop-up ran, although we did not get to this section yet.
Hmm. Okay.
Because it runs that as soon as a case is
Right.
created,
Got a
it runs
delay.
that core left. So yeah,
Right.
just set up like an uninitiated trigger on the far left and leave it
Uh,
blank.
Okay. And then even this ran, so it would and there's a point to be made that we have this pop-up, and even though it hasn't hit the load file, those trigger
Right.
flows are running.
Yeah. So yeah, if I didn't
I
have
see.
this, it would say, okay, yeah, it hasn't been added yet. It runs that first flow and say there's nothing in this because it runs that, at runtime, and at runtime we're currently locked in here, but in your use case, you're a few milliseconds ahead of this.
So how do
Oh
we,
wow.
if we create the dummy state, right? How do
Mhm.
we get it from the dummy state to the new state without triggering the new state trigger automatically? Or would we
Well,
want?
you just leave one blank and you would still set this to your, so what is your first far left state called? New?
New.
Yeah,
That's correct.
new.
Let me just make sure I'm online with that. So our second one is called new, right? This is your first one though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
so you
then
have an uninitiated. Okay.
I added this a few moments ago, but yeah, I
Okay.
did it probably while we were
All
talking,
right. I was
but
looking at our flow while you were talking.
no, you're good. We're all working and learning together here, man.
Okay, cool.
So now that I have new as my first one, let's say, can I just move this over? Is there an easy way to move it?
There is. I'm trying to remember how it works. Drop down, set classification info. That's what is at the top.
And I add new here.
Right.
Excuse me.
Oh, is it not case sensitive?
It was my bad.
Oh, wait. Did it create a new state, didn't it? Far right.
Ouch.
Oh, wait. What?
Yeah, it did, but
Folder view. Do folder view real quick. Top right. It's in there. There it is. Set classification info.
nice. Okay, so now that we're in new, we moved everything over to new. Let me go back to my main flow. And that's just kind of Well, replace a little bit, but get rid of this. And now that we've done that, as long as we set the entity state to, and again, case sensitive, right?
Hmm.
New. Now, here's what we'll actually do. Here's what we'll actually do to prove a point.
Okay, I get what you're doing now. So you're putting in a dummy state to let it finish the flow. And then at the
Yeah.
end of that flow, we do a new, we then set the state to new, which will then trigger the new trigger, the new
Mhm.
state trigger. Okay. Basically, the dummy state is just to allow the actual flow
It's just a
to finish up
buffer.
and running.
It's just a
Yeah, it's a
buffer
buffer.
for the
Okay,
milliseconds to catch up.
it makes sense.
So does that mean that every time you do a create case entity, the trigger flow automatically runs?
Yeah, the far left trigger flow is going to run the moment that a case entity is made.
Gotcha.
Like
Okay.
state one, like when you create part of the configuration folder, it says we've created it. Okay, run step one. Like
Okay.
it's going to go through that kind of configuration. Like you can think of those as like, okay, a configuration folder is what happens once a case is created. Step one,
Mm,
rerun the same flow, and it just kind
gotcha.
of gets locked in on itself. I'm just going to show image here.
I see.
I haven't
Okay.
I haven't done the I9 training. Does that kind of go into detail about
That is,
like that
yep,
concept?
it is this one. Yep, it is
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, so in I9, it's pretty much exactly, not exactly, but it's pretty close to this. So you have as a part of your main flow here, which
Yeah.
is going to be a lot more information than what you need. But I'll just kind of show it to you anyways. We are creating, that's actually, sorry for the forward labeling of our flows here. We are importing a list of CSVs. We're going through, filtering them out, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Once we get through that list of things that we want to create PDFs for, we go through them individually, and individually we create a new I9, which is kind of like what you guys were doing, where we're creating this I9 and we're storing this. And then we go through, we create a PDF here, and then we add that PDF to the folder using a similar methodology,
Okay.
right? Folder ID, load from file data output. It'll put that PDF in those folders. And then in the configuration folder, we have actions that can be performed. These are not trigger flows; these are user actions, which is why they're not running automatically. That's you can see kind of the icon here of a person versus
Mhm.
the trigger flow option. So things that live in this state, if you right click them, you can do these things like view document, which was kind of what I was building out there a moment ago. We get file references in folder, and then we show the first one, which is kind of what I was framing out
Yeah.
here.
And it makes sense too, because I saw when you first started the demo, your first set of states, you did not have a trigger associated to your initial state. So
Yeah. Would it be an
makes
image
sense.
viewer here, guys, or is it a what is it?
I think it's
Document
this
viewer. Okay.
document viewer. Maybe? No.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
There you go.
I love it. Data name of input, being real deep here. It's file reference. All right, and we're getting file reference. This is giving us a list of file reference. There's only ever going to be one in there. So now file references first. What are we yelling about here? Oh, didn't pick the folder ID. There's always going to be an option in the configuration folder because it assumes when an entity goes through the configuration folder, it's like
Mhm.
it assumes, hey, which record are you trying to do this to? Because either a record is going through it automatically or you are right clicking a record and triggering it through it. So it makes those assumptions like, hey, I used the folder ID of the record we clicked or got jammed through at runtime.
Gotcha.
I put those into in progress here, or at least I thought I did. Did I halfway build this out or did I do it here? I did it here. So now when we set the entity state to new, it should show us that document viewer and run this flow automatically
Awesome.
because we set the entity state to new here at the end. All right, so let's see here. If I go debug Unmas,
And thank you for letting us take up most of your time today.
no,
We
you're
really
good.
appreciate those.
Why did it not run that flow? Did I miss something? Did I maybe misspelled something?
It might have run. I'm just wondering if it works with the UI for having a form show from another flow. Because it was usually an assignment, right? Like,
Yeah, I think you might be on something there. Let me check one more place, but
Hey, Clarence, I need to hop off for a second, but hey, thank you guys so much.
yeah.
Yep.
Trying to assign it to myself and see if that will resolve us. 5, run. Yeah, and there's that image.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, hopefully did that bring some clarity? Is there anything else we
It,
missed there?
no, no, no. It brought clarity. I think that gave us a good idea of our next steps. And this is also going to be available on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on here as soon as this call's over. I'll do it for you, and
All right.
I can even email you too, and let you know when it goes live. But it shouldn't be more than about 30 minutes. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes for it to
Oh, okay.
takes about 10 to 15 minutes for it to like populate on Zoom, and then 10 to 15 minutes to upload to YouTube. So in that
Gotcha.
world,
Gotcha. Okay. No, but this was really helpful. I think this provided a good degree of clarity, and I think that in terms of future questions, we had another question, but I think we can just direct our query to support. So maybe they
yeah,
can go a little more into niche. Um,
yeah,
but no, this was good. No, thank you.
cool, no problem.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you guys. Any other questions? We got like around 10 minutes left. And just a friendly reminder for everybody again, we do have all those webinar. We do have a webinar coming up on the 27th. And we do have all of our older webinars on YouTube, and as well as, like I said, I post all these lunch and learns to YouTube as well. So, any final questions here? I appreciate y'all. I mean, I learned a lot. It was nice to collaborate with Greg and Jeremy, and I'm learning too. So everybody's learning. Soon we'll all be lunching. Any final questions before I close them out? All right. Thank you guys very much. This was informative and fun. Appreciate everybody. See you guys tomorrow.